Welcome all to this virtual public hearing of the Bethel Board of Finance. I'd like to call to order the public hearing and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Hopefully a flag will appear soon.
Do you see the flag?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
The flag of the United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, God,
indivisible, liberty and justice
for all. Good evening. I'm Bob Manfred. I'm the chair of the Bethel Board of Finance, and I want to welcome you to our town's first ever virtual public hearing. How long Bethel has been around, that's saying something. So maybe take a moment and recognize the significance of the moment. COVID-19 has turned our world upside down, and life has been impacted in ways previously unimaginable. In response to the health crisis, Governor Lamont has issued executive orders which make it impossible to determine a budget by means of our normal town meeting form of government. As a result, the Board of Finance has been tasked with determining the budget for the fiscal year 2021 without the benefit of an annual town meeting or a referendum. We will have only this virtual public hearing. To be very clear, no one is happy about this, especially the Board of Finance members. We did not sign up for this. We signed up to be advisors to the budget, not deciders of the budget. That said, this responsibility has come to us and we will fulfill it. All right, so what does a virtual public hearing look like? I guess we'll find out, right? We're going to aim to replicate the familiar in-person format of to the greatest degree possible. So picture the stage at the Bethel High School auditorium, and on that stage are the 7 members of the Board of Finance: Bob Kozlowski, the town comptroller; Melanie O'Brien, the chair of the Board of Ed; Dr. Carver, the superintendent of schools; and Terry Yansky, finance director of the Board of Ed. We'll go through some slides, the form of which you've seen for in prior public hearings, and which provide an overview to both the budget and the budget process. And then we'll get to public comment. So Dion, if you could you bring up page 3 of the slides?
see it?
Yeah, but it looks like
it's not clear.
Yeah, it's pixelating. Is it getting clear?
It says click on browser, and it brought it up. That's what she told me to do. Then I had to type in my name.
Uh-oh, that's not you, Dion?
Nope, that's not me.
All right, is there a way of, I don't know, is there a way of making this?
Okay, okay, is that better?
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
Oh, okay. Resolution. Okay.
As for all of us, this is our first time through, so we'd ask folks to be patient and help us with any of these little challenges that we may be facing.
It is, okay, I think it is in presentation mode.
Visually garbled.
Dion, I'm going to send you another copy.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Nice balloons.
Okay, and with that, if you're going to send it to me in the PowerPoint,
Yes.
it's take me just a couple minutes to download it. So I don't know if you want to just wait or if you want to start talking or what you want to do, but I am going to need just a couple minutes to retrieve that.
Yeah, it's an important beginning to the presentation.
Okay.
Pardon me, but when you were displaying it, it wasn't just the document that was pixelized, it was your entire screen. So it might be either a Wi-Fi issue. I don't think it's a document issue.
And it wasn't clear.
Right, but it's not just the document that wasn't clear, it was her entire screen. So it's something happening with the Zoom meeting itself or with your Wi-Fi connection. It's not the document. It was the way you were presenting it.
Okay.
Can you present instead of the whole screen? Can you present just the tab? There should be 2 or 3 different ways of doing a presentation. You might have to try a different one.
Or somebody else could present.
To that participant.
Do you have it up? Robert, can you pull it up on your screen and take control and share?
And then Dion would need to make him a co-host. But he should be able to do it too.
Bob, it's John Crouse. Do you want me to do it?
Anyone? Yeah.
If they said the write-in was no tax increase, majority of people that wrote in wanted no tax increase, so they're gonna couple it. It's right there, it just came on. That's why I said it needed everybody, it needed a lot of people to write. People didn't write.
Maybe do a reminder that we can hear a lot of people talking in the background. Well, not a lot, but a couple of people talking that I don't know if they know that they were talking. So they might want to mute.
If someone who has the document brings it up on their screen and they can share the screen, it'll look to everyone like it looks on their computer.
And please, Bob, I didn't get what your capacity is there.
Oh, I'm sorry, was that a question to me?
Yes, I didn't get what your capacity was. What your position is there, that's all.
Yeah, no worries. I'm the chair of the Bethel Board of Finance. And the public hearing is a Board of Finance meeting. So as such, it's run by the Board of Finance.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Dion, do you want me to share from here?
That's what you should do. Yes.
Well, the positive of this is more folks have joined.
Just while we're waiting, as a teacher, I'm very appreciative of how patient everybody's being. We've been living this for the last 6 weeks or so, just like this. So I completely get what you guys are going through with the tech stuff.
Okay.
The difference is we do it with like 5 and 6-year-olds. It's awesome.
I believe Dion is on the phone with the IT resource. So let's give her a second.
I can't share because I'm not enabled.
If someone controlling the meeting has the document, they can share their screen.
Yes, we understand that. Right now, the only one who controls the document is Dion and the screen.
Okay. Robert, do you have the slideshow?
Yeah, I do. If you,
Hey, can you?
yeah, you have to grant me a screen share.
Yep, yep.
Dion, you're muted.
Muted. But if you muted yourself, they wouldn't hear you.
We can hear whispering.
Dion, you're on mute.
I know, I am on mute. Everybody on this Zoom meeting might not want to hear what I have to say right now.
Can you make me?
Okay, yes, I've made you a co-host.
Okay, good.
So now he can share his screen.
Okay, so you should be good, Robert.
I will.
I'm literally sitting right next to my,
Hey, there you go.
His looks good.
Yeah, Robert, if you could bring us to page 3, please.
Yes. Just make. All right.
All right, page 3, this chart is a familiar chart. We've shown it in prior public hearings. It groups the town's departments by categories for the fiscal year 21, right? The year that runs from July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. The town operates through 37 departments, and you'll see that 34 of them are included in town operating. And then there's a department 450, Board of Ed, 460, Board of Ed Maintenance, and 440, the debt service. And the chart is meant to just to show the current budget level, that's the current 1920 fiscal year, the proposal for 2021, the dollar change, and the percentage change. It breaks that analysis down by the typical 4 groups that we talk about as to the budget. Now, as you may know, right, the detail for each of these departments was in the material listed on the town website, included in the mailer. It goes into the departments in some detail. This is just the overview of that information. So Robert, could you please move to the next chart? We had mentioned how COVID-19 has really changed our world and has caused families to think about a lot of things. Families are forced to deal with many things just to get through the day. And so we thought it might be helpful to start with a recap of the budget process. And that's what this diagram and chart are meant to do. So you'll see the way the budget process begins is with the cap letter A in the graph and the cap letter A in the chart, February initial request. Through January and early February of 2020, the department heads put together their budgets, and that is what's presented in the very first meeting. That again is what you see in the letter A block, and it showed initially an increase of 4.91%. The way our process, and when we began this, we began it kind of typical. I mean, it was the usual process that we go through. So after the department heads put their budgets together, they presented them to the joint meeting of the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen. After those joint presentations, the Board of Selectmen, again in February, mid-February, came up with its suggested or proposed budget. That's where you see again in the graph, cap letter B, and in the chart, cap letter B. That proposal was for the $81 million, 81,079,066 for overall. It was a reduction in what the departments had presented of about $743,000 and got the year-over-year change to a 3.96% increase. Again, just following the normal process, the Board of Selectmen presented to the Board of Finance, and the Board of Finance did its deliberation around the budget. At this point, it's a pre-COVID-19 world. And you see cap C on the graph, cap C in the chart. What the Board of Finance did was we reduced the Board of Selectmen number by another $361,000, exactly 361,456, to bring it down to a 3.5% increase year over year. Then, and that again was in early March. Then COVID-19 hit. In April, the Board of Finance got together. During this period of time, we had a better sense as to what COVID-19 meant. We had a better sense for what was happening to the economy nationally and locally. And we had a better sense for the CARES Act, the law that the Congress passed on March 25th that provided a number of safety nets for citizens of the US. At that point, we, the Board of Finance, removed from the from the March Board of Finance numbers, another $952,600. And we came up with this number that is D in the graph and D in the chart. It results in a 2.27 year-over-year increase. It's about $2.1 million less than where we started and is the proposal that is now under discussion. Robert, if you would, could you just change this to, I'll move this to page 5, please. So folks may say, well, how did you get to this number? What drove you? What were the priorities? Well, we believed the priorities needed to match what was going on in the environment. Those priorities were health, safety, and education. So you'll see that in these numbers, the health department was bolstered. Fire and police were bolstered, again, under the banner of safety. Both of those groups, fire and police, are facing tremendous challenges, and we thought it was appropriate to fully fund them in these times. And then we have the education increase. What this budget also does is it does not reduce the senior center number, it does not reduce social services, and it does not reduce the elderly, disabled, and tax abatement credit. Now, a lot of people were nervous about whether that credit program would change. It's not going to change. So for those folks who are concerned about the elderly and disabled tax abatement credit program, this budget does not do anything to reduce it. Now, we would have liked to have been able to do more for the senior center, do more for social services, do more in that program, but we just didn't see a way to do so. Lisa and her team are doing tremendous work keeping the seniors connected. Megan and her team are working around the clock on the social services front. You know, when time kind of moves on, and if they need additional funding, we'll have to look at it at that point. But these are the priorities that built, or around which the budget was built. So, Robert, can you then go to page 6, please? The question we usually get then is, okay, I get spending, but what does this mean for taxes? I think folks understand that taxes is a function of revenue and expenses. And so therefore the tax increases differ than the spending increases. And folks asked us, okay, we get the spending increase. What's it mean to us as far as taxes? And the chart in front of us is meant to answer that question. Right? Our current mill rate, 33.41. Estimated mill rate of this proposed budget goes to 33.74. It's a 0.33 increase or a 0.98% increase. Again, trying to address, be responsive to the questions that we got as far as what does this mean to me in taxes? Robert, could you go to slide 7, please? All right, so then we got this question, well, what does it mean in dollars and cents? And what this chart does is try to give some data points to people so that they can figure out what the increase means to them. You see 4 data blocks here, right? A 210 market value, 310, 410, 510. What we have used in the past as a data point is the 310 market value home. And you'll see that that's the number that has been communicated most broadly, a $72 a year increase in tax. Robert, could you go to the next slide, please? You know, we provided the information as to spending increase. We provided the information as to mill rate increase. And then we got some questions about, okay, we get that, but where does Bethel stand? I hear Bethel is very expensive. It's got a high tax rate. What does this mean for me, kind of relative to surrounding towns? And that's what this chart is meant to answer. The question of where does Bethel stand kind of in its peer group or with its neighbors. And you'll see right here that the mill rate is 33.74, kind of, you know, upper end of the middle range. And the annual taxes on an average median home, 337, is $7,963. The low end of the range is Danbury. The upper end of the range is Wilton. You can see through this chart, we're more towards the bottom end of the range. Again, just trying to put this into context for folks who want to know not just what's going on in Bethel, but what's going on kind of relative to our peer group and other surrounding towns. So Robert, could you go to the next page? All right. Enough of my rambling on. We really are here today to get the input from you all, the public. We've got what looks to be 223 folks on this call. We would like as many people as possible to be able to talk. So what we are going to do is we're going to limit folks' comments to 5 minutes or less. If folks want to continue to discuss points, we will re-add them to the back of the queue. Dion will be able to give somebody a 4-minute warning. And then at 5 minutes, we'll mute that speaker and go on to the next one who is speaking. Again, this is all with the intent of getting as many people to talk as possible. To minimize the background noise, I think Dion is going to actually put everybody on mute. Is that right, Dion? The folks, I see you nodding your head, good.
Yes.
The folks who will not be on mute will be Bob Kozlowski and Terry Yansky. I would ask folks to address their questions to me, not that I'm looking to be.
Okay, you mute now, that's good.
But in a way to just try to give Dion some time to toggle back and forth to who the speakers are.
So if Robert could just go ahead and stop the slideshow, please. Perfect.
Okay.
Right.
So we first, I guess, I want to thank Dion and Nick, who posted all over 350 submissions that came into the public hearing mailbox. All of those have been posted. And we want to thank every one of you who submitted comments to that.
He can't see you.
Robert, can you give me just 1 second? I'm going to mute all, and then I'm going to unmute you. There we go.
All right. So thank you to everybody who submitted their opinion to the public hearing mailbox. I will tell you, every one of those submissions has been read and recorded. So if folks have put in their submission, there's no requirement for you to speak again tonight for that submission to be recognized. Additionally, I would ask folks not to spend time tonight on the vote versus no vote question. Look, everybody on this call agrees it stinks. It stinks twice, but there's nothing this Board of Finance or this discussion is going to do to change the fact that we will have to determine a budget at the end of this week. So I'd ask folks in respect to try to get as many people, as many of the 225 people to speak as possible, to kind of make sure the comments are to the questions that we can address. And with that, Dion, I'll turn it over to you to begin the public comment.
Okay. So we have Bill Hillman.
Hi, I'm Bill Hillman.
Right.
Hey, Mr. Hillman.
He's muted, Dion.
Oh.
Okay, am I unmuted now?
Yes.
So Bill Hillman, 86 Walnut Hill Road. I do have a question, then a statement through you, Bob Manfreda, to Bob Kozlowski. With the decision for Duracell, you're giving us some 200 or 250,000 a year less in taxes, and anticipated defaults, foreclosures, and inability of people to pay taxes, citing the $410,000 home that had a monthly increase on top of a base, which comes to something like $800 per month for people out of work. Mr. Kozlowski, again through Bob Manfreda, what is the change to the anticipated revenues that I'd asked about in a letter to you earlier today and to Brad Hearing?
We just received information regarding the Duracell judgment, and I know that the attorneys and our assessor are looking into the possibility of appealing the case at this point. So there are no adjustments built into the budget or the calculation of the mill rate based on that at this point.
Okay, so my statement. I think everyone agrees the situation stinks, as Mr. Manfreda has cited. My right to vote is really not negotiable, nor is my First Amendment right to speak about the vote or no vote. The Board of Finance will make a determination on Thursday. You have the power, you don't have the authority. You were given that power by the Board of Selectmen, who have power but not the authority. They were given the power by 7B, 7I, 7S, 7HH, and Executive Order 7JJ, which seems to include, again, the wording from 7S that says, well, maybe we could have a vote. I don't think you have any intention of allowing that. That power given to Mr. Knickerbocker and the Board of Selectmen came from Governor Lamont. He cannot exercise power in excess of what the state constitution has. The city of Vernon has already voted under the Equal Protection Clause of the Connecticut Constitution. We have a right to equal protection. We have a right to vote. There is no authority that this Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, or the governor has, which is why the Conservative Caucus of the General Legislature has filed a complaint with the Department of Justice. It's why a member of this Board of Finance has filed a complaint with the Department of Justice. It's why a Greenwich attorney may be filing suit. So while you have the power, and it's possible that when we get a tax increase, which would be unconscionable, many area towns are giving no mill rate tax increase. With people out of work and no end in sight to this, it would be unconscionable to foist a mill rate increase on the people of Bethel. But if that is what is to happen, you have the power to assess, you have the power to collect, whether it is with the authority to do so or not. People will lose their homes if they don't pay their taxes. But I would suggest as a protest, people who do pay their taxes wait until the last possible minute. Don't pay on the first of the month. Pay at the last date that they can without any kind of a tax penalty or liens put on their house. And when you mail your payments in, send it in with a tea bag. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So I know that Sean is next on the list, but Sean, earlier, Mr. Gallagher had requested to speak, and so he is next, and then I'll call on you. Okay, Sean, I'm not skipping you. Mr. Gallagher?
I mean, I don't want to jump ahead of Sean.
No, you're not jumping ahead. You did ask to speak, and I knew where you fell in the line.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. I won't be very, very long. We saw the progression of the budget from early February to April, and each time it was lower. And each time the situation has gotten worse with this virus. Now we're a month later from the last reduction, and I think a good case can be made that you may take the ultimate step, as was done in the year 2009, to reduce the budget to a zero increase, because it's far, far worse economic situation than it was back in 2009 when I happened to be the chairman of the Board of Finance at that point, and we were faced with that situation when the bottom dropped out of the economy. What wasn't addressed in the presentation, though, was alluded to somewhat by the previous speaker, is the loss of revenue that's going to come. We don't know what is going to happen. And we've already seen in miniature a loss of revenue from one town department that many people use, and I'm talking about the transfer station, where because the virus, they're not able to take in any of the fees. So it's it's an open season down there to bring your things down. And this could happen on a much bigger scale with the collection of taxes. So I think that also the two reasons I would focus on is, one, the number of people who are out of work. We've seen the unemployment rate now hit 30 million in this country. What the percentages of Bethel, I do not know, but I'm sure it's high. I go out walking every day. I see a lot of people home, people out of work. I talked to one lady one day who had lost 2 jobs that day, one her waitress job and one her regular job where she got benefits. So I think that a good argument can be made, because a lot of these people would like to be making what they made last year, and they're not going to make what they made last year. So to zero up the town budget is not a radical step, in lieu of the fact that many people are facing that. And the second is that in regard to this authority or voting situation, the last budget that the people of Bethel authorized the Board of Finance and to put into effect was done a year ago. That's the authority that people gave you. And I think it's a safe thing to say that if you stay with that spending authority of what you were given a year ago, you're on a strong ice. But if you, just a few people, and I hope the vote is not along party lines, but it's done for the benefit of the overall population. If you go by the fact that you are authorized by the people to spend what you put into effect for the 2019-2020 year, you're on safe ground. And that's my message to the Board of Finance tonight. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you.
All right, Sean.
Hi, Dion. I don't even know why my phone is coming up as Sean, but that's my son.
Okay.
Jen Lawler, 22 Bethpage Drive.
Okay,
He doesn't even have a phone, so that's very bizarre. I'll have to look into it. I wasn't aware that a question could be asked, so I'm wondering if I might address Mr. Kozlowski for just a brief moment on something, and that would be, I'm not understanding how some of the federal monies that have come in and are being dispersed through various towns, be it for town support or education. Has anyone run any numbers to see how that's going to help? And it might, lessen some of the monies that are needed. I'm just wondering about that. You can give me a brief answer if you need to.
We have to file a quarterly report. One was just done for the first quarter at the end of April, and it's filed through FEMA. And for the additional expenses that we're incurring, we potentially could receive a 75% reimbursement for those type of expenses. Things like shields that we have to put around, but that's not in the current calculation, but any cleaning supplies, PPEs and things like that. That would go into the reimbursement request, and we potentially would see some reimbursement from the government but it doesn't mean that you're going to receive it right away. It could be months or, with the last microburst, it took almost a year to receive the money. So, I mean,
Yes.
that's.
Yes, I'm aware of that. Thank you. I appreciate you asking. I just think it's important. It's a shame that we can't have some of that information as the Board of Finance continues to make their decision, knowing whether or not some of that funding would offset some of the costs we're going to have. Okay, so to my statement, I don't have anything formal prepared. I'm actually parked and sitting in my car. I just want to, again, highlight what I said at the last meeting. The last meeting I had shared that I thought it was very important to preserve the needs of students in town. However, I do have great empathy for how this is going to impact a lot of families. It's easy for those that are in a stable financial position to look at it as $72 a year. But for some, that's immense. So maybe I didn't even say the right number if I said $72 a year. Anyway, I know it doesn't seem like a tremendous increase for everyone. Myself, my family, we'll probably be all right with that if it goes through. However, some won't. And I guess what I want to say is that if the Board of Finance goes back through to make additional cuts, I truly hope that you do not make the heaviest of the cuts. I don't know where you're going to find them. I don't pretend to know, but I really hope you don't have to slash the education component too much when it comes to staffing. I think it's critical. And, I can speak from personal experience for many, many years as a parent in this town, the big changes and how it impacts kids. So like I said, I don't know numbers. That's the job of the Board of Finance and the other leaders in town, but I do know people, and I think it's very important that you make a human decision, and that includes preserving our education and taking care of people that can't keep up with the bills. So that's it for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have right to vote. Right to vote. Let me unmute you.
Right to vote is Bill Hillman. I've already spoken.
Oh, okay.
So if you would please, I will
Sorry. Okay, here we go. I will.
I think you might be shown twice then, Mr. Hillman.
So we've got Karen Foster.
Hello, I wrote mine out so I could be brief. Karen Foster, 9 Burnhamwood Road. I'm in favor of the current budget as proposed. I realize times are tough for many people. I know the budget has already been made as bare as possible to the Board of Finance members concerned for citizens who have reduced or lost income. And I want to point out that this is as close to a balanced Board of Finance as you can get. There are 4 Democrats and 3 non-Democrats. On a 7-person board, that's as close as you're going to get to being half and half. So no matter which side of the spectrum people are on, I think everyone is being represented. And I know that everyone on the board is concerned about doing what's best for the town as well as the citizens. We do need to support our town and our schools. Life goes on, the snow still has to be plowed, and the schools still need to do their excellent job teaching our children. In the same way that we all came together to support local businesses by ordering takeout food and tipping well, we need to support our town through this tough economic situation so they can meet their obligations to the citizens and the various departments and businesses that serve the town. There are businesses that do things for the town. Those employees need to make a living too. On a personal note, I would urge the school to not consider cutting the music and theater programs. I can't imagine a school year without music and creativity. I think the school budget is as bare as you can possibly get. I was there when the schools presented their requests in the very beginning of the budget process, and I know that they've already been cut of a lot of things. I also know that part of what they need is additional help for the remedial students who need additional help. And I want everyone to consider the fact that when your kids go back to school next year, your kids might be the ones needing that help. And there's going to be less available when there wasn't enough available before. That's all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Okay, so we have Hunt D.
How you doing? David Hunt, 32 Spring Hill Lane. I've been a lifelong resident of town. I've seen how tough economic times have come and gone, and I've seen what happens when we cut services to the people who need it. We have a lot of people in town who are dependent on the services that our social services provide, that our schools provide. There are a lot of things that our school does for kids to help to improve their situations. And I think to cut the budget and to decrease anything that we have for school systems and decrease anything we have for the social services, I think is from a philosophical standpoint, kind of taking a step back. I also wanted to thank the Board of Finance members, every single one of them. This is a very difficult thing that you're doing. You didn't sign up for it when you took this position and when people voted for this position, but I think everybody is doing the best that they can and that they know. And I have a lot of respect for what you've done, each and every one of you. And I just wanted to just add that being a lifelong resident of this town, we have gone through some very difficult times, and we've come through together. As a town, we're a great group of people who lift each other up, and I'd like us to see us continue to keep the support services that we need. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hunt.
So we have Tolan S. Hi.
Sorry, was on. Yeah, hi. Sorry. Yeah, my name's Sean Tolan. I just had a question, a couple questions. As you look at people talked about the revenue, and I guess that's kind of where I've been trying to better understand. In terms of have you done some like scenario modeling in terms of nobody really knows obviously how much the tax revenue is going to go down because nobody knows how it's very hard to predict in this environment. But what, like in terms of tapping into liquidity and liquidity modeling, would you have to, are you able to raise, I guess my concern is that, how liquid is the town and what funding from the state or federal government would you have available if things, if we had a 30-40% drop in tax revenue, which is possible, hopefully not, but yeah. And so it's more of, I'm not as familiar as, from how a town works under those scenarios as opposed to like a business and kind of the modeling I have to do with my work. So I'm just curious, how has that modeling been done and what kind of sources of funds, if we get that kind of revenue drop or tax revenue drop, how do we as a town, as people have said, we have a lot of critical services here. How do we actually support that in those situations? And can we tap into funds to do that?
That's a great question. Thank you very much. Bob, do you want to take the first hack at it? And then I do some of that same stuff at work. So I'll.
When we look at our fund balance right now, our fund balance as of June 30th, 2019 was at 22.92%, or roughly $18 million that we have in the bank available for emergency situations and capital needs and the operation of the town if needed later on. If you compare that number to the current budget, which is a little bit higher, it drops to about 22.55%. So we're still in a very good position. Revenue from mortgages represents about 54%. So as long as the escrow accounts are in good shape, that money, 54% of the tax revenue, will continue to be available. Bob and I have talked about the possibility of maybe the first quarter that's going to tell the story, what's happening. And at that point, if it looks like it drops off significantly, rather than tap into the funds, we may have to cut back on some expenses. But, at the current point, position we're in, with the amount of money that's available, I think we're in a pretty good position to weather the storm for a number of months.
Yeah.
So, Bob?
And I would just add to that. I think we haven't done modeling in the way that you would think of modeling for purposes of a financial services regulatory business. But we've kind of have the history from the financial recession of 2010. So in the first instance, what that tells us, at a 10% unemployment level, we still had a pretty good collection rate. So we can anticipate some reduction, but not as much as one would typically think. So revenue sounds like, again, it may come down a bit, but we're good there. Secondly, if we needed to, we would cut expenses. We would, at the time of crisis, we would do the expense reduction that is typically necessary. Other forms of liquidity, we've got short-term band borrowing. To Bob's point, we're approaching this. Remember, we're talking about the year that starts July 1st. So we're still 6-7 weeks away from that. But we're coming into that period from a position of strength. So first it'd be revenue, hopefully again, collect this, at the rate we saw more or less during the depths of the financial recession. If necessary, cut expenses. If that is insufficient, then it would be tapping short-term lines. And the town's got a AAA credit rating, so we'd be able to do some of that short-term band debt raising. And so I think those are kind of the levers that we are looking at to make sure that we weather this storm.
Well, thank you. That was helpful. And I just like to say, we have a lot of great people working for the town and in the community. And, as people have reiterated, if we sticking together through all this is critically important. And I'd like to thank you, everybody, for, thank you guys for all the hard work you're doing on this, because I know it's not easy. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have David Glahn.
Good evening.
Hello, Mr. Glahn.
Name.
Howdy. What do I have to do to get my picture up there?
We got you.
It's up there. We see you.
You see me? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Good evening, people of Bethel. Tonight is a meeting to speak out to protect our right to have a budget referendum. The Finance Board has one job to do, and that is to create a budget and bring it to the people to vote on. After you do that, your job is done, period. I want to thank Cynthia McCorkindale for trying to prevent our voting rights from being infringed upon by going to the Justice Department. Let's keep our Bill of Rights forever. Finally, raising taxes is insane, insane. And I hope that reaches all your conscience. Remember that word, insane. No one deserves a raise. And just from my heart, I've worked at a homeless shelter for 12 years. New York is bringing in homeless people to have a bed, to shower, and something they can't get out in the streets, food. Now it's not just about the homeless people getting food. It's about our parents and children getting food. We're in a recession now. And we're in a very bad situation, which is not getting better, but getting worse. Now we have 100 children in the hospital dying. That could be one of your children. So you think about everything but what's important. Your health, your children's health, the town health. Thank you very much, and everyone have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Glahn.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, we have Douglas Quine.
Yes, that's right. Can you hear me?
Hi, yes, we can hear you.
Very good. Well, thank you for having the meeting. And my name is Douglas Quine, 59 Taylor Road. I have a mundane question. I've sent an email in about it, but having not had an answer, I thought I'd ask it here. Looking at the Board of Education's budget proposal, I'm trying to understand the numbers, specifically comparing, for example, nurses and tutors. There are 7 full-time equivalent nurses and 3.5 full-time equivalent tutors, making, roughly speaking, the same amount of money total, which means that the tutors are being paid approximately twice as much per full-time equivalent as the nurses are, which seems puzzling based upon my understanding of what those two categories get.
Got going a little bit.
Worked out to be $61,000 per full-time equivalent nurse and 116,000 per full-time.
Thank you.
You know what it is I'm not understanding, or?
Thank you, Mr. Klein, for that question. I will refer it to Terry Yansky. Terry,
Yes.
Terry is the finance director for the Board of Education.
Yes, I can tell you for the tutors, there are many very few like hourly people, like that we have a number of part-time, low hour people. And so I put all the dollars are there, but we did not calculate a full-time equivalent for the tutors because it changes, it fluctuates so much.
So the number is written as 3.5 last year, this current year, and 3.5 for the coming year. But the problem is that number is not correct?
The full-time equivalent on that is not does not include all the ups and downs we have in some part-timers. So the dollars are accurate, but the full-time equivalent is not. You are correct.
Ah. And for the nurses?
Nurses, we do have the 7, yes.
Okay, so the problem is that the full-time equivalent description for the tutors probably needs to be, it's probably just not.
And that's because there's so many part-timers and it fluctuates based on student needs at the time. Whereas we've had 7 nurses in the district for many years. We've had that number of secretaries for many years. We have that number of paraeducators. But admittedly, the tutors is the full-time equivalent number is not an exact. I carry it so that at least you can see the change in full-time equivalent from year to year. If we're really adding another sort of full-time body, just to be transparent about when we really do add another position.
Uh-huh. I see. Well, I guess just based on what I know tutors get paid, my sense is that maybe the thing to do would be looking at the amount of dollars. Maybe you could back calculate that based on their hourly rate, which would work out to be the equivalent of a certain number, which would be a very different number from 3.5.
I will take that under consideration. Absolutely. Thank you.
And if I could add, Mr. Manfreda?
Please, Dr. Carver. Dr. Carver is the superintendent of schools.
And just to add on to what Mrs. Yansky is saying, so the tutors provide a variety of services for our students. Sometimes we have to provide students tutors that are on homebound services because of medical needs. Sometimes because of expulsion, we have to provide tutoring services. And sometimes we have to provide it to students with disabilities. So to Mrs. Yansky's point, every year that number changes, and there are no fault. I mean, they're all, for the most part, they're all hourly employees. The overall amount doesn't change, but the needs change every year given the needs within the district. So I just wanted to add the purpose of the tutoring.
Oh, I understand. My wife was a English as a second language tutor for 15 years. I completely understand. My wife was an English as a second language tutor for 15 years.
Okay, good, good.
It seems like if you know the 6 significant digits, the number of dollars, then it would seem that you can probably say, well, based on that number of dollars, you know how many tutors you're going to be able to support.
Yes, and as I said, Mr. Quine, if I change that up and down and try to account for every change in the tutoring hours, sometimes that could mask the change.
It went away.
Yeah, but just touch this and it'll come back.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt just for a second. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mute all. We've got some people that are, okay, have unmuted. Okay, go ahead. I apologize. Let me get Terry.
Okay, I did it.
Okay, thank you.
You know, if I try to track a new number of part-time hourly type folks, it could mask the fact that we're adding a full timer. And I like to be very upfront about when we add a full timer, it's with benefits and everything. So I try to make sure that our boards in town really understand when we're adding those types of positions that do come attached with benefits and everything. But your point is well taken. So I will reconsider that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Klein.
Okay, next we have iPad 2. Gonna unmute you. And then if you'll just give me your name.
My name is Gerard Amond from 78 Midway Drive.
I'm sorry, Gerard?
Gerard Amond, A-M-E-N-D.
Thank you.
From 78 Midway Drive. I cannot echo the sentiments of Bill Hillman strongly enough. Given the fact that you're looking at an unprecedented economic impact on the taxpayers of this town, it is just beyond incomprehensible to me that somehow, however you want to slice it, the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, somebody cannot come up with a zero increase budget for the taxpayers of this town. And again, to some other people's sentiments, my right to vote is not to be infringed upon, and what's going on is completely unconstitutional, and the Board of Finance in no way, shape, or form has any authority to cast a vote for or against my intentions for the budget. That needs to be addressed first and foremost before anything to the state Supreme Court, before any budget is voted on by anybody, because it's the people's right to choose the budget, not the Board of Finance. I'll just cut it short at that and leave it at that. But what's going on is completely unconstitutional, and there should in no way be a mill rate increase forced on the people of this town without them having a say in it.
Thank you.
That it?
Next we have, let me see here. I'm gonna scroll down. It's covering,
Looks like Ryan,
is it?
my screen,
Yeah.
towards the top.
Ryan, and I apologize, I'm not, can you just tell me what your name is?
You have to unmute him.
Oh, I did. Yep.
No, hi, my name is Ryan Arconti.
Will you spell your last name?
A-R-C-O-N-T-I.
Thank you.
No problem. I'm at 20 Westview Drive. I just moved here to Bethel from Danbury a couple months ago in February. And I just wanted to say I appreciate everything you guys are doing. I know these are tough and unprecedented times. I was just curious on if there were things that happened to be not used this year or next year within the budget, would Bethel see maybe the previous year, the mill rate that was increased this year to go back to what it currently is, considering there's some line item expenses, such as, like, I'm looking even at the school budget right now, like diesel fuel for buses, with that line item budget, assuming that the last half of this year and the first half of next year, there might not be as big of a cost. I was just curious on how that outlook plays out.
Sure. And why don't we ask Bob first, and then we'll go to Terry, being that your question seemed at least initially to be Board of Ed related. So Bob, to you first.
Yeah, as far as the expenses, any expenses that we have, if it creates a surplus where we don't spend as much as we originally budgeted, that would go into fund balance, which could be used next year if appropriated by the Board of Finance. But there are certain expenses, like in the Highway Department, that we may have some money available because of less use of gasoline and fuel and things like that. But we have a requirement to clean the storm drains. So that excess money is going to be used this year before the end of the fiscal year, June 30th, to clean the storm drains according to the state requirements. So yeah, I mean, we do try to appropriate the money during the course of the year for another, within the department, for another need. But if there is still a surplus, then it would drop to the fund balance and to be appropriated the following year, if need be, by the Board of Finance for capital needs or whatever. But Terry can talk to you about the diesel fuel for the buses, because that's a special situation. And Terry's muted right now, Dion.
Yep, I'm unmuting her.
Ryan, that was an excellent question. Thank you for asking. So we have, ever since this whole pandemic crisis began, we've been tracking where there will be savings, but also where we are experiencing additional costs related to the pandemic. So in terms of diesel fuel, we are going to have some savings, a little over $19,000 this year. And also in our bus contract, we will have some savings. Now, the savings may not sound as significant as you would originally think, and that's because there were many executive orders issued by the governor that put a requirement on school districts to pay any of their major contracts. They allowed us some room for negotiating, but you had to make sure that you were paying your contractors, and they did even name bus contracts so that they could pay their employees and keep them off the unemployment rolls. So we did negotiate. We do have savings, which are helping to offset the fact that there were different costs going with distance learning, some additional things that the educators needed for that. We also have loss of some revenue. We're doing the emergency feeding 6 days a week to families and students in need, but our loss in our food service operations for the year, could be as high, it could be close to $100,000. So with some savings came some additional costs and some additional losses of revenue. So at first, we thought the savings might really be a windfall, but then with all the requirements that came out from Hartford, the windfall is not this huge amount. But we are cautious with our spending as always, and if there are monies left at the end of the year, we have some options turning it back to the town, or they do allow us to put it in an unexpended funds account that can be used for emergencies moving forward. So we are watching that closely. Obviously, we've had other costs. Municipalities pay directly for their unemployment. They don't pay into unemployment insurance. And so as soon as people are laid off, the full cost of the unemployment comes back against the municipality or the Board of Education. So we are watching both sides of this, but you are absolutely right. The way the money is flowing has significantly changed, and that's why we're tracking it closely.
And if I could add, just going into next year, because I'm sure that's part of your thinking also, Ryan, is that we're also dealing with a lot of unknowns right now. Are we going to be able to operate full time in the fall? Are we going to have a hybrid schedule given the public health risk of our children? Are we going to have to run double bus ones in the fall to do double sessions? I mean, those are real conversations that they're having at the state level to mitigate the public health issues. In addition, we're also challenged with the fact that because we've been in distance learning, we haven't been able to serve our students with disabilities as we should. So we anticipate that there is going to be, in addition to all of the issues I outlined in our budget presentation with our increased enrollment and our challenges, we do anticipate that we are going to have more academic gaps going into the fall that are going to need to be remediated. So it makes next year even more unpredictable to determine whether or not we'll have the savings. So I just wanted to add that piece.
Ryan, do you have any further questions?
No, no further questions. I just want to say thank you guys for everything you're doing, and looking at this is a very sound budget. So I applaud you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next, we have Jen Ackerman.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I had touchy Wi-Fi today while I was online. I just want to thank you, everyone, all the Board of Finance for taking input today. I know you guys are really trying to be advocates for all our citizens here, and I love to see that so many people join the meeting tonight. So that's really uplifting to see as a community member, no matter what your belief is on this situation. I just want to say, and really coming after Dr. Carver, she kind of stated a few of the sentiments I was going to restate, but in order to address really our increased demands put upon our schools, by the growth in numbers, the ever-changing demographics that we have and needs, this already reduced budget needs to stand. We've taken new positions out already. We're streamlining stuff. And I know upper level administration is working really hard to find ways to repurpose and reallocate staff, which we've been doing for the past several years. That has been challenging. As we move through, a town by town, if I'm going through the town by town review of what's going on with our neighbors, they're approaching their Board of Ed increases as well. And a lot of these towns have declining student enrollment. So it's just interesting, we are not steady. We are not declining. We have been increasing steadily over time. So those numbers, even in the other towns with steady or declining, still are showing a significant increase or some increase. Nobody's at zero. We entered, each year a little short-staffed over the past several years with some programs not fully realized or limiting, cutting certain things here and there, trying to streamline as best we can. Like it or not, we have growing numbers. Like it or not, we have growing needs. Like it or not, we have growing remedial concerns. All right. We have, however, those seem to get addressed sometimes because they're the squeaky wheel, but we also have a large population, our majority population, who we want to keep high expectations for. And we're really trying to focus on, that average kid and making sure they have everything they need. And that for us is, been something that we're really trying to fund. What do these kids get? So, all learners, all of them, not just the high achieving or the remedial. We don't know the full impact here. As Dr. Carver said, we don't know the full impact, and we don't know the academic, and we definitely don't know the emotional needs and concerns that are going to be coming out due to closure. We're going to have probably more, not less. That's my guess. So we need to anticipate, we need to adjust, and we need to adapt. And the Board of Ed is thinking about the health of all Bethel Public School students. It is thinking about the wellness of all our learners. These are unprecedented impacts for everyone, for sure. So, we have to anticipate and plan and gap fill. And associated costs are definitely going to be upon us. Lots of unknowns, but the unknowns are too great to underfund right now. We know what our knowns are. We've asked for more. Those are now not happening. We've cut those. So now we have all these other unknowns and associated impacts of this community crisis. We cannot go in underfunded. And I'm just going to advocate for the Board of Ed budget to stay.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have John Crouse. John.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you for the time, and Mr. Manfreda, we have known each other for quite some time, and we do share some memories and a mutual respect. So I will start with that, but it's probably not going to get any better from there. So I do respect, and I don't envy what you guys are doing, the seven of you. or 8 if you include Mr. Knickerbocker. But you've already foreshadowed the vote in your opening comments, which I think is telling. So this public input is probably not necessarily, it's not effective, but it is the one part of the process that we've been able to hold on to. So I would say, one, you'd said that we were in a position of strength going into the next fiscal year. I would say nobody is in a position of strength going into July 1st. And if you think you are making a big mistake. I work in the private sector. I work in sales, but I'm an economist at heart. And the economist in me tells me that what we're doing now, we as a town, when 1,700 of our people, which is 16% of the workforce, has filed for unemployment in the last 6 weeks, which is 3 times as many that filed the last year, there's a problem coming. And we just don't see it because, unemployment's at 4%. It's not at 4%. If it's not 15 to 20% in 6 weeks, you can call me up and tell me I was wrong, but I'll be right because I'm an economist and I understand how it works. If 20% of the town is out of work, how are they going to pay their taxes? You're going to have additional foreclosures. You're going to have delinquent taxes, which probably is not factored into the budget. So, the private sector is a leading indicator of economics. What companies do when things go bad, and things couldn't be worse right now. They could not be worse. There's not a company not laying off people unless you're manufacturing sanitizer or masks. That's it. Everybody else is laying people off. So to think that because you're a town employee or because you provide services to the unwell, it doesn't matter. Everybody's affected. Everybody's affected when there's less income coming in. Less income means less spending. Less income means I'm going to walk away from my house. So I do have a question now. I could go on, but I won't because I can see all the faces and the rolling eyes. It's fun. This is great. But I have a question. Did you ask the first selectman to consider challenging the governor's executive order to allow you 7 people to have a vote for 10,000 people? Is that something that you guys did? Is it something that you advocated and the first selectman said no? Or is it that you just didn't ask, you wanted to have the vote to yourself? I'll leave that to Bob, I think.
Yeah, look, John, that's an unfair question, right? It's a gotcha kind of question, I think.
No.
And look, it's irrelevant, right? You know that we do have a Justice Department act.
Can you get me a seltzer? Oh, sorry.
Get Jackman off the line.
Seltzer, I'm
thirsty. Carry on.
Yeah, anyway, it's irrelevant, John. Now, if you want to make a substantive point, keep making your substantive points. That last question was unfair, not substantive. We are unhappy about this. I've stated it. We, the Board of Finance, did not sign up to be the deciders of the budget. We signed up to be advisors to the budget. That said, we're not walking away from a responsibility that we've been tasked with. So we will fulfill that task. That's the answer to your question.
No, I know, but you're not really answering the question. The question is, did you ask the person who has the ability to challenge the governor's executive order, did you ask him to challenge that executive order or not?
My question would have been to the governor, not to our first selectman. The first selectman was just following the position of the governor, John.
That's great, but other towns have challenged the executive order. And did you ask the governor to challenge that order, or did you just let the first selectman make his decision on his own?
Well, John, the example that folks give is Vernon, right? And we have followed what's been going on in surrounding towns. And we heard about what Vernon was doing. And I wasn't sure if they were geniuses or kooks. And when I look to what Vernon is, it's a town about the same size as Bethel, maybe a little bit larger. They tried to hold their referendum. 110 people showed up. That showed me they weren't geniuses. All right. So there's no need to ask any of the questions because we're not those health experts. Came down that we have to do this and we're going to do it.
Okay, then I have another question for you.
Okay, can I just, we are
Am I at time?
minutes. So
Okay.
just.
I'll stop. Nope, I'll stop. I'm done.
No. Well, Mr. Crouse, what I was going to say is just like we announced in the beginning, if you would like to raise your hand after everybody else is gone, but we were trying to give 5-minute timelines to everybody.
Thank you for my 5 minutes. I appreciate it.
Well, you can have as much time as you want.
We only have a few more people to go through, John. You're free to come back.
Yes. I'm not shutting anybody down. I'm just, okay. So the next one, let me see here. We have, oh my goodness, where did she go? Start with an N. Did I lose you? Oh, nice person. Nice person. Did you have your hand raised?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry. Will you give me your name?
My name is Audra Mace. I did send in a comment letter last night. It was not posted.
Okay, Audra, I'm sorry. Will you just spell your last name for me?
Mace, M-A-C-E.
And no, ma'am, it was not posted. We had to have all documents in. It's just Zoom meetings and the executive orders that have been sit down. Everything has to be in 24 hours for us to be able to include it as a document. But it was forwarded to the Board of Finance and the Board of Ed, and they did review it. So it wasn't lost. It was reviewed. I just couldn't include it with the documents.
I feel I was navigating the website looking for the comprehensive annual report just to get a solid footing and more of an in-depth understanding about what the town finances are. I was unsuccessful finding that on the website, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who has looked for it. The last one available I could find through Google, which led me back to Bethel, was from 2014. So if that could be put up on the website, that would be very helpful. Also, in the comments, I had proposed an alternate way of polling people. If the Board of Finance chooses not to hold a vote or pursue another means in order for a public vote to be accomplished, you know, with the 333 comment letters plus mine, and maybe some more that didn't get posted, you know, that's only, you know, 1-2% of the total voting population. This call of 200 some odd folks still isn't really a big turnout, and I wonder what kind of turnout would we have. So some of the proposed remarks that I offered was, what does this body think of polling through social media? And it's not a vote, it's not a, it's more of a questionnaire. And I proposed a few different ways to phrase questions in order for you to be able to gauge and maybe reach more people who feel it's easier for them to use a social media poll than to come out in a coronavirus environment, or even to sit on a meeting like this, or even respond in a comment letter, because that takes time. What does this body think of that idea?
You said that if this body decides to pass a budget, look, this body has been tasked with that responsibility. We will do that. We have offered up as many efficient ways that we know of to get input, and we'll have to go with what input we receive. People would like to do some other things, understand that. They're generally, I think, viewed by IT folks, not by me. IT is not my area of expertise, as not being as sound as some other methodologies. So to your point, it's a good idea. We should continue to look at them. I know the state of Connecticut is trying to look at them. It would likely require an amendment to the Connecticut Constitution. That has come up every year, and unfortunately, it requires a supermajority, and that has not happened. So we're stuck with the system we have. We're stuck with the methodologies we have.
Yeah,
to your point,
you're probably going a little further ahead of what I was thinking. I was just thinking for you to gather information from the voter base that turns out more than 1 or 2%, like on this call, or through the comment letter process. I mean, if you could reach 25% of the voters, or any amount of voters, just to get input, where you frame it in the context of a poll. And I provided several examples. Since you said that you did receive my letter, please give it some consideration.
will do. And just to frame it for you, it's not 1%. You typically get about 3,500 people to a referendum. So we're in the 10% category, which I think as a statistical matter is significant.
Audrey, can I just respond to the financial statement question you had?
Yes, thank you.
I think what wound up happening is when we presented all of the budget information, it kind of pushed that out. But if you go into the, I believe, and I'll check it out tomorrow morning, because if I try doing it now, I may lose everybody here. But if you go into the announcement section of the website, which is the center section, and you work your way, scroll your way all the way down, you'll see it on the date that we actually posted it, a few months ago. So, but I'll check it out tomorrow, and if it's not there, we'll get it up there tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So next we have Melanie.
Thank you, Ms. Mace, for those comments. Appreciate it.
Melanie, are you there? Melanie? Well, I just unmuted her and I lost her. Melanie? All right. So next we have Joanna's iPhone.
Oh. Hi, my name is Joanna Dewey, D-E-W-E-Y. And my address is 9 Pound Sweet Hill.
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone. I think this is really tough times, and my concern was really how we're going to continue to support our education system, given that our town is experiencing situations different than neighboring towns with increased enrollment and need. And also coming into distance learning and not having a full grasp on understanding of the costs that are coming and are going to be associated with that. So I think my first point, I'm probably one of the few that thinks, man, if we're only increasing $6 a month, how much more could education get if we only increase $8 a month? I know we're not going back in that direction, but I support no additional cuts at all, especially in education. And I also want to thank you guys, because I think $6 a month at this point, it's not to say times are not hard for everyone, but I don't think it's the town's responsibility to make sure that, no family has financial assistance. We're getting a stimulus package. Thankfully, we're getting, people can have unemployment, and it's not going to be the same, and it's going to be hard on everyone, but I can't agree that $6 a month is going to be the reason someone loses their house. It's a gallon of milk. So I can't believe that. And that does not mean I don't empathize or sympathize with people that are in really tough times. But I just want to applaud you, because I think given the needs that we have that can't be ignored, you could be presenting a budget that is completely hard on the town. And I don't think this is. I think it's more than fair and super reasonable. And then my only follow-up question would be a concern, knowing that there's nothing we can look to as best practice for what did the towns that have had something like this happen, what was their expenses like? This has never happened before. So is there a plan, or is there enough funding? Like, if expenses go up significantly in education because of the distance learning, are we prepared for that? That would be my final question.
I would ask perhaps Dr. Carver and or Terry to address that.
Sure. I mean, I think it's so hard to predict, right? Every day, new information is coming out about what the impact of the public health issues are going to be and what we're going to face going into the next school year. And the reality is we're going to have to work within what budget we receive. So we know that there likely will be increased expenses. Will our students have to wear PPE? Will our staff have to wear it? Will we have to do temperature checks? Will we have to create social distancing within classrooms? So there's so many unanticipated things. But I think or I think the community knows that we, both Ms. Yansky and I, approach it from a very fiscally responsible perspective. And so we're trying to anticipate that as we develop plans for reentry in the fall, and look towards, because, and I think one of the other callers, our participants, talked about, funding from the state. We do anticipate some, but we don't know what it's going to look like and the total amount. And so looking at all those pieces, we're going to have to address a myriad of needs. I don't know if you want to add anything, Mr. Zansky?
Sure. So Joannis, thank you for asking that question. It's an excellent question. What I can say is this crisis is different, but we have faced crises before. Through 09, 10, 11, we did face the recession. The Board of Ed, when we're asked to do things, we do them. We did, over the course of the recession, lose 20 positions in the district. We have never gotten reinstated all of those positions. Some yes, but never all. Ever since Dr. Carver's been here, we love the word reallocation. We reprioritize and we reallocate. There are X resources and we spend a lot of time, we take it very seriously. There was another crisis just a few years ago when the state budget had a huge hole, and we were informed that the town of Bethel would be shorted $1 million in their ECS revenue that comes in. What did we do? We met immediately with the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance, Town Comptroller, and we developed a plan to hold back on a lot of, to pull back, to again, reprioritize and just do the things that were most important. And we got through. We got through it, and we've always partnered. We understand that we're part of the town hall, and we always partner. And as we go forward in this, you have our commitment to work alongside the Board of Finance and the Town Comptroller's office to continue to work as partners.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I just I just want to reiterate my full support, my husband's full support with what you all have done in giving people the least amount of impact as possible and still supporting our needs holistically. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, next we have Brad Coates. Let me unmute you, Brad.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Thank you all for hosting this public hearing. I think all of us appreciate that. I've got a couple of comments and then I have a question. One of the comments is I noticed that the meeting materials were not provided with the meeting agenda on the website where this was. None of the material that you provided for us in terms of the slides, the link to the public comment area, et cetera. I would just encourage, and I realize this is our first public hearing, that going forward, we put a protocol together so that that package of material conforms with the Executive Order 7B. I'm not complaining about it. I just wanted to point out that as a member of the public, it's very difficult to navigate the information if you can't find it in one place, which I believe is why 7B was put in place.
Brad, before you move on to your next point, thank you for that. It is all up on the website.
In various places, Bob. It's not all in one simple, accessible place. I get there was a ton of it. It's just a piece of feedback. It's not a complaint.
Take the point. And to your point, we are working through it. I just wanted to make sure folks understand the data, the information is there.
I'm not saying it's not available. I'm just saying it's really hard to pull together and find.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you were saying it wasn't there.
No, obviously the public comments are there, but they're really hard to find. I could not find the material that you displayed. I'm confident if you say it's up, that it's up, but I spent over an hour trying to find it. So just want to share that.
Yep, appreciate it.
I do want to point out that there are 5 other New England states besides Connecticut that have very long, multi-hundred-year town meeting traditions. None of those other states have transferred the authority from their town meetings to a board. They've all addressed this in different ways. Some through a mail-in, some through virtual, some have frozen things. I just want to point out that this is not, Connecticut is pretty much alone in this particular approach, and I certainly feel for all 7 of you for being put in this position. We currently have over 19% unemployed in Bethel, according to the Connecticut Department of Labor. That includes the spike with COVID and the roughly 370 people that were on unemployment prior to it. That's over 2,000 people in Bethel currently. And I want to point out that the Federal Reserve is projecting that our unemployment by the end of this quarter is going to reach over 30%. So we're at the tip of the iceberg in terms of where we are in terms of impact on our citizens. Given that, I think the Duracell loss is a tiny drop in the bucket of what we're potentially looking at. And I am, frankly, deeply confused as to why this conversation is not about developing some kind of a tiered approach for deeper cuts, not just discussing whether we should be 0 growth or 2% growth. I firmly believe that there are ways to cut this budget without cutting teachers or increasing class size or impacting negatively the experience of our kids. I think many of our neighboring communities are doing this, whether it's voluntarily foregoing raises, whether it's implementing some kind of a furlough program. There are many tools at your disposal that have no impact on the student experience. They do on staff, and there's no question about that, just as they do on the taxpayers. And I just want to put that out there, that the discussion has been framed in ways that I don't think are as accurate as perhaps should be. I do also want to point out that many believe this process to be illegal and unconstitutional, and I am aware of at least 3 initiatives that are going to challenge these budgets in court. I believe a responsible and pragmatic approach would be to zero the budget, call for it, as is called for in our charter in the event that we can't come to a determination, and then move to a special meeting after the declaration of emergency is lifted so that these issues can be addressed by the voters who are legally and constitutionally entitled to that. I believe it's a way, Bob, for you to navigate what has been put on you and the board in a way that is responsible and legal. And I would encourage the board to seriously consider that approach. I do have one other question. Will there be additional public input allowed during the board's meetings, not the hearing, on either the 14th or the 15th. I know there's a lot of confusion with the public, and I'll just end with that question. And again, a thank you to all of you on the board for this work. And I know trying to navigate, as you put it, a very difficult situation that none of you signed up for.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you for your comment. And those meetings, the first meeting on Thursday, it's a special meeting, and therefore there will be no more public comment.
And the meeting on the 15th?
That's just in case something happens. It's a
Okay. Thank you, Bob.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, next we have,
That's possibly happened, Bob, really.
next we have Neil. Neil, are you there?
I'm unmuted, but
There you go.
there you go.
We see you now.
Um,
Your first and last name, please.
Pardon me?
Your first and last name.
Neil Dana,
And how do you spell your last name?
D-A-N-A.
All right, thank you, sir.
First off, I want to thank all of the Board of Finance and Board of Education members for putting in the time they put in and sitting here with all of us, breathing down your necks. But believe me, I won't be one of them. First, I'll tell you my story. My wife and I moved up to Bethel with our two children back in 1986 after living in Stamford for many years. Our children were in Stamford schools, but after a time we saw that they were deteriorating, and we made the decision to leave the big city and move to the country, I guess I could say. And after doing an exhaustive search for a new home, we decided on our home where we are in Pelmel Drive now. I'm sure most of you know it's an outstanding family neighborhood. It was then, it still is, and very family oriented. When we moved in, we had within 10 houses of us, 3 families that had 6 children each, and many more on the street. So we've been very happy over the years. Both of our kids went through Bethel High School, the whole system, moved on to good colleges, graduated, became very successful. And looking back now, I attribute much of our children's success to the support the education received in the Bethel school system, without which they might not have been able to move onward the way they did. Excuse me. So I guess we made a great decision in '86, and I still feel it's a good decision. What I didn't say in the beginning is we are 75 now. We are retired, living on, of course, limited income. But I say $70 a month is no problem to me. If we can keep our property values up the way they've been going now with Bethel, I stand fully behind you guys. Today, I look at our neighborhood, and after 34 years of living here, I ask myself, why should I stay? And I just have to look around. Within the last 2 years, the 3 houses across the street from me have been sold to families with small children. And why? Because they looked at the Bethel school system. And I can't be happier to see the renewal of our neighborhood. In addition, Bethel has maintained what I like to call, small town charm. And yes, we have growing pains just like everybody else. But I wholeheartedly believe the major value Bethel has to offer new residents is the school system. For that reason, I feel the system should remain fully supported and funded by the town at a level that will keep attracting new families to Bethel and thereby keeping everyone's property value up. And that's the main thing, I think. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next we have iPhone.
Yes, it's me. Am I on there, my dear?
Yeah, yes.
Am I? Okay. Billy Michael, 27.5 Fleetwood Avenue. Am I ready to go?
Yes.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Of course, I'm against any increase in the mill rate. Head of the Bethel Action Committee for 35 years. A resident in this town since I've been a kid, so my whole life. Never seen such a radical transformation of everything I've known Bethel to be or America to be. For 4 members on a Board of Finance to have the power to implement a tax increase over $1 million in spending. 4 people are going to move this. A voting majority from one party is going to be the legislative body of the town. If that doesn't give somebody shivers, then I don't understand the history of this country. We have a crisis where part of the town has guaranteed income, guaranteed benefits, guaranteed jobs, while other people, at least 20% now, have lost their jobs, many with no chance of getting the jobs they had back. This is critical. We have a process where the Board of Finance gives us a little show with pieces of with information. Where's the revenue? This is the 3rd time in the Knickerbocker administration where I had to personally ask for revenue numbers at town meetings assembled. And now this Frankenstein of a public hearing. And there were no revenue numbers given in those pictures that came out. We have a right to the revenue. In fact, informing the public of the revenue is so important. It's part of our charter. The town meeting requires revenue to be given to the people by the Board of Finance. Now you can say, oh, this isn't a town meeting. Great. So you got around another aspect that protects us. The fact that the people at referendum protect us from small groups of people amassing power. And what about this? What about all your outreach for information? And you have the organized school lobby actually giving you input, teachers on the school technology during school time. Now, we had a big fight in 2012 about all or none. Do you remember that? That became a state law. You can't have that which is owned by the public used selectively by certain groups. And this is exactly what happened this week with the teachers whilst in school using school technology to lobby for tax increases. And of course, their salary and benefit increases are in there. You have a time when we're being told, I can afford $7 a month. I can afford $6 a month. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not the increase that's hurting. When you're out of work, you can't come up with the $7,200 that the $6 or $7 is added to. But you know what? If you have a guaranteed job with the government, it doesn't matter. This is the apartheid aspect. We have 2 sets of economic of economies. We have the private sector where you lose your job, and you have the government sector where you don't even go to work and you can keep getting paid and you get your benefits. This is so unfair. It's so inequitable. And I'm going to leave you with this. You've had a long night. I thank God for Cynthia McCorkindale that she has the backbone, a member of your Board of Finance, to challenge this usurpation. Mr. Manfreda says, we've been tasked. Well, suppose you were tasked with doing away with the right to a speedy trial. Suppose you were tasked with the right to do away with the right to assemble, the right to speech, the right to worship at the church you choose. You were tasked with to do away with the freedom to vote, and you undertook it without a whimper, without any pushback or backbone. But you know what? We made sure that the free school lunches were not impacted. No, but how many people have died to protect free school lunches, to guarantee that, as opposed to the right to assemble, the right to vote, the right to worship? This is a travesty. This stinks. This is an America that I don't recognize. And I'm so glad that Cynthia is fighting to hold on to the America many of us love. Thank you for your time. I hope you end up in court and this whole thing is thrown out. Done.
I love Billy Michael.
Yeah, good job, Billy.
Okay. So next,
All right, let's go, Maya.
we,
Will.
give me just one second. Okay, so next we have, sorry, I thought that, okay,
You'd have something different.
I'm sorry.
When I'm looking at the participants, I see the next person up with a hand up is Mary LaQuarrie.
Yeah, but I thought that somebody fell off. I was just making sure. Okay, so the next one we have is Mary. Mary, are you there? You should be unmuted, Mary. Let me just see. Mary?
Yes.
There we go.
Okay. All righty. Mary LaQuarrie, 58 Old Hollyville Road. I've lived in town for over 25 years, and I've been a teacher in this district for 15 years. And I want to speak on behalf of all of my educator friends and family. And I did send in a letter that addressed some very specific concerns about social emotional concerns that we have, the class sizes where I have 27 kids in a classroom. On March 12th, we moved into our brand new wing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, taxpayers of Bethel. It's an amazing new space. And I got to show my kids that space. And then we left that day at the end of the day, and I won't go back into that building until September. So I had kids crying in the corner because they didn't know when they were going to see their friends again. And so what has happened over the last 8 weeks is the teachers and the educators and the speech language pathologists and the counselors and numerous other people in this town, many of whom live here, work here, pay taxes here in the largest employer in town, have stood on their heads to help the kids in this town. So we turned education on its head. There's a lot of people, nurses, and all of these people who work in hospitals and healthcare, they are absolute heroes, but they're doing the same job that they've done. We turned education on its head in a matter of a week. We have completely changed the way education works. I have friends who are teaching their own kids at home who are also working 10, 12, 15 hours a day to teach their students. And so it's amazing what we've been able to do. Speech language pathologist, I walked in on the last day before we could not get into our building anymore. And a speech language pathologist was sitting there in tears because she had no idea how she was going to do her job to reach the students that she works one-on-one with. And we have all collaborated and we have all worked incredibly hard. And there's no state tests this year. Teacher evaluation is not, not a top priority right now, but we have continued to work incredibly hard to turn education into an entirely new industry. And it's going to continue that way for a while, it looks like. But it concerns me that we're not considered by some people, right? There are some people who do not consider us professionals that feel like we should be giving up furlough days, and teachers who may have emailed accidentally from their school email addresses. You're looking at my office 10, 12, 15 hours a day. I'm sitting on this computer, and that's not why I went into teaching. I reached out today, I called a parent who's gone through some kind of devastating experience, and I had to sit and talk to her and help her understand that the most important thing is for her and her kids. Not did he do his math assignment today. And every one of us who work in this district are feeling the emotional, extraordinary stress of trying to manage this new normal. I'm texting back and forth with colleagues. who are so stressed about, what am I going to do if I only work half a day? What am I supposed to do with my kids if they're on a staggered schedule and I'm on a staggered schedule? Our teachers are really feeling this as much as anybody. I also want to point out that I think, Ryan, you said you moved here from Danbury, so thank you for jumping right in. The Danbury City Council approves their budget. When I lived in Norwalk, there was no voting on a budget in town. So it's a privilege that we have had for a very long time. I applaud the Board of Finance for doing everything they can to take in all of these hundreds of letters, etc. But I really hope that you're going to do your very best to help the kids in this town. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. So next we have.
I was yelling, wasn't I?
No, you weren't. But you might want to put us on mute now.
Yeah. I'm attempting to, there we go. There we go. All right, Courtney. Courtney? Courtney, you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. I don't. All right. Courtney, I apologize. I'm gonna go ahead and skip to the next person. You want to raise your hand again? Please do. So next we have Katrina. Katrina, let me get you unmuted. All right, Katrina, are you there?
Yeah, actually it's Elizabeth Callanan, and I'm at
okay.
Green Pasture Road in Bethel.
I'm sorry, you said Elizabeth?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it shows up as.
I know my sister, or my daughter overtook.
No, that's okay. I
apologize. She's on there for everything. So I just wanted to point out that we moved up here from Charlotte in a suburb, and there was school, and there was definitely there was where we lived. And we love it here because there's community. There's schools, there's the services for the fire department and everything. And then there's the community and the schools, and they're all together. They're not like a separate unit. And I just wanted to point out that the schools are constantly going into the community and trying to make it better and taking everything that they have and they've learned to make the community better. I mean, they've been offering lunches during the day. My daughter's in ROTC, they're constantly going in and doing the food drives, and just anything that they hear about there's a problem, they're the first ones there to jump in and help out. I don't think there's anybody that has more compassion for the community than the school district, and understanding and trying to always meet the needs. So I just want, when you think of voting and the everything, just think about that it's more of a cycle than just individual entities. They all really work together. And I do feel, we know we've had our downs with this epidemic or pandemic as well. And I feel for everybody, and I know there's people that are going to have a hard time meeting their taxes. And it doesn't have anything to do with if they go up 3% or not. They're just going to have a hard time meeting them. And I hope you can come together and help them out. But I don't know as though saying no to the budget is the way to do that.
All right. All right. Thank you. Okay, next we have Jen Larson. Let me get you unmuted, Jen.
I got it.
All right.
Hi, Jen Larson, 128 Grassy Plain Street. I want to say that, the budget as it stands, is a well-done budget, well thought out. We started at a much higher point because at the time that we started, I'm as the Board of Ed, when we started our process, the process, we were in a different place. We were in a very different place, in a very different world, which has turned very quickly. And I see what has been done since then was very much not to the liking of the board, of course, but as a taxpayer and a private citizen in Bethel for 27 years, I do understand why, we have to backslide and rethink what we were asking for. So I think that where we've come to from where we started is very reasonable and to be expected. We live in a town that is a very middle-class town. We are attractive because of what we offer. We have a beautiful downtown. We have social services. We have senior center. We have an amazing library. We have many wonderful things to offer people who live here. And in order to offer those things, they cost money. So we have to support them to keep them. In the past, we have cut the budget. We've cut it way down. I was here, through the last how many years of cuts. And as has been brought up, we have cut, but we've never added all the way back. Oh, we'll cut that now, but we'll put that back. But what happens? It doesn't go back. So then it takes years and years to come back from that. How can you do that again? When we talk about a 0% budget, you do realize that a 0% budget does not mean that we keep everything we have. It means deep cuts. We have contracts, we have things that have to be paid for at set prices, just like at your house. Your mortgage, your electric bill, your cable bill, they go up. Things go up. And we have to pay for those things. So when you give us a 0% increase, you are cutting us drastically. We are in a situation now where the whole town would be totally derailed from where we are looking to go by doing that. So I'm asking you to keep the school budget as it is, support what we have. We do know that, there are going to be extra expenses that are going to come out of this. There is no way we can move forward with exactly what we have with what's going on. Students are in need, and 5 months out of school, even with distance learning, really does inhibit a lot of things for students. It hurts them. And it makes it very difficult for their parents as well. Everybody is suffering through this together. So let's move forward together and let's leave the budget where it is, both the education and the town, with no further cuts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. So next we have Nick. Nick, you there?
Yep, I'm here. Thank you, Dion. Nick Hoffman, 163 Plum Trees Road. I've been listening diligently and obviously following this process from the beginning, participating through my role on the Board of Ed and also concurrently chairing the charter revision. And I think I'm going to tap into that piece first because there's some things that I've heard tonight that are a little concerning. Particularly, Mr. Michaels, if your Waterloo is the free and reduced lunch children within our schools, let me run some of these numbers behind you because Ms. McCorkindale loves to point out, food and prescriptions are a concern for people, but for one child, that's 364 meals a year. One child, 364 meals. We have 30%, or about 900 children participating in this program. That's 327,000 meals a year. Please explain to me as a tax watchdog, how much money does that save a family who benefits from that program? You got my email, so I'll wait for the response. Additionally, as the Bethel tax watchdog, you're on public record saying, I hope you get sued. I hope we get sued. The proportion of a 4-3 vote compared to what a referendum would be is probably negligible. And it's your desire that the town has to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars into pursuit of Ms. McCorkindale's abuse of the Voter Rights Act, which was designed to protect the civil liberties of minorities in our country. And your desire as a tax watchdog for Bethel is we get sued. I'll tell you how that works out, because we went through this last year with Miss McCorkindale. She filed a nonsensical complaint against the Board of Education, and it cost us $6,000. $6,000. I would be shocked if either of your property value was, or property tax was $6,000. So we're in a net loss simply by your pursuits of these Don Quixote-esque windmills. And for the folks who've referenced the Constitution, I just, as a historian, like Mr. Crouse is, by heart a economist. My undergraduate degree is in history, and I have quite a passion for it. And having been part of the last two charter revision commissions, our form of government is only used by 5% of the country. It's the most antiquated and nuanced form of government left. It predates our Constitution by about 100 and something, 150 years or so. It is so antiquated that when our founders formed our government, they specifically formed it to not mimic the town hall form of government. We opened this meeting with a pledge of allegiance, and we pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic for which it stands, not to the town hall form of government or town meeting form of government for which it stands. And let me just illuminate you a little bit more. Alexander Hamilton. We are now forming a Republican form of government. Real liberty is not found in the extremes of democracy, but in moderate governments. If we incline too much to democracy, we shall soon shoot into a monarchy or some other form of dictatorship. That's Alexander Hamilton. Thomas Jefferson. A democracy is nothing more than mob rule, where 51% of the people may take away the rights of the other 49. Benjamin Franklin. Democracy is two wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for lunch. Liberty is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote. After the Constitutional Convention, Mr. Jefferson was asked by a bystander, well, doctor, what do we got? A republican or a monarchy? Benjamin Franklin replied, a republic, if we can keep it. John Adams, our second president, remember, democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself. Oh, gosh. James Madison. Have ever been spectacles of turbulence and contention, have ever been incompatible with personal security or the rights of property, and have in general been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths. Okay, so everybody who refers to the Constitution, put the effort in, study it, understand it, please. And the Constitution itself, the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government.
Hey, Nick.
Yep, allow me to finish. 2 months ago, 435 people passed the largest single bill in the history of humanity. $2 trillion. $6,666. Ironic number, huh? Per American. So all those kids that Mr. Michael doesn't want to feed, you put that on their tab. Put that on their tab. That's what they're going to be paying. They're not going to get the Social Security.
All right.
Enough.
I'm so sorry, but
let's run to town.
Thank you.
okay. So Ryan, I've got you next, but you've already spoken once. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let the ones that haven't spoken yet, and then I'm going to come back to you and Mr. Crouse, okay? All right. So we've got Melanie. Hi, Melanie. Are you there?
Hi, I am here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Melanie O'Brien. After so many of the good comments ahead of me, I'm trying to cut down my comments. I'm not too redundant. But I want to make a few points. Many of the speakers tonight are concerned about the most vulnerable in Bethel, and so is the Board of Education. I urge you to consider the children who will certainly need our schools to be at full force when schools reopen. I also want to give you some facts. There are more children in Bethel. Enrollment is currently 3,193, and I'm sure counting. District enrollment is at a level not seen since 2007, 2008. And we have 12 fewer staff positions with at least as many kids. There are more challenges and more needs. There are 393 children who need math intervention who are not receiving it. The children who qualify as English learners is up to 6.8%. The children who qualify for free and reduced lunch are now 30.8% of the student population. And incidences of anxiety, depression, and other conditions that affect mental health are present at increased rates. I assure you that not all needs are being met or will be met under the proposed budget. Please consider the children and our most vulnerable among them. They rely on the support systems offered in our schools. The next point is that Bethel is unique. In fact, all towns are unique, but we're mostly concerned about Bethel tonight. So don't compare us with other towns. We have rising enrollment, we have a diverse demographic, and we have a fiscally conservative town. We don't add headcount easily, and we run lean. Our per pupil cost is consistently below the state average, and the most recent data from the state for 2017 to 2018 showed $1,500 per pupil below the state average. I think that's right, Mrs. Yansky. So this district does run lean. We've reached the point where we can't do it all. It's not sustainable. And we have an obligation as a Board of Education to tell the town that we've reached this point. So it's not all hearts and flowers this budget go round. There's some sobering news. So as chair of the Board of Education, I speak for those children and their needs. And I strongly urge you not to further reduce the Board of Education budget. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Melanie. Okay. Next, we have the Stowe family. Are you there? Oh, wait.
Hi there. You hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. I want to thank everyone tonight who's on and participating, and of course to the Board of Finance for what I anticipate is many, many hours of work that you've put into this. And I just wanted to briefly just...
I'm sorry, would you just introduce
88
yourself?
Taylor Road, Allison Stowe.
Well, no, your first name. You haven't told me who you are.
88 Taylor Road. Anyway, I just wanted to say that as a parent of this town, I'm just overwhelmed by what everyone involved in the Bethel Public Schools has done for our kids over the last few weeks. They get on Google Hangouts, teachers did a parade, and our children rushed to the curb of the streets like the ice cream truck or something magical was coming down just to get a glimpse of their teachers and wave and say hi and hello. And if there's anyone that wonders if maybe there's money we can take from our teachers or furlough or this or that or a day without pay or any of the things I've heard over the course of joining these meetings, I just encourage you, if you don't currently get Dr. Carver's weekly newsletter, if you don't follow the Bethel Public Schools and social media, please do. Please see how amazing they are, how they bring out the best in our kids. And it's just with so much gratitude that I just say, please leave this budget as is. We are grateful for what they've done and what they are doing. And there's so much unknown in the future, but supporting this budget is what we can do to support our schools. So thank you.
All right. Thanks, Allie. Okay, next we're going to try Courtney again. Courtney, you there?
Can you hear me this time?
We can hear you.
Yay, sorry, my microphone wouldn't work. I apologize. Okay, so first I just want to say thank you so much to the Board of Finance for everything that they've done through this entire process. And I also want to point out that I do feel very concerned, and I have a deep respect for everything that everyone is going through in this entire pandemic, crisis, whatever you want to call it. And everything that I'm going to say tonight has absolutely, I'm considering everything that everyone is going through during this time. I just want to state some facts. So already $2.2 million has already, approximately $2.2 million has already been removed from the budget that was proposed between the Board of Ed and the town by the Board of Finance or by the Board of Selectmen in the cuts that they have made. So this is not, the current proposed budget is not something that we had even originally asked for. There were a lot of cuts made. During the last meeting, there was a call for letters, and no one really has spoken tonight about the letters. I spent a lot of time. I read every single solitary letter, and I counted them. I wrote everyone's name down. I made a list because I really wanted to see what collectively the town was asking for. Looking at all of the letters, if you're counting just letter by letter, there were 180 that were for the proposed budget and 117 that were against. 11 of them were other. Some people had said they just wanted the right to vote, which I understand. I mean, everybody should, you know, people die for your right to vote. You should have that. But unfortunately, we're kind of stuck in a position where this is what has been laid down to us. But there were a lot of duplicates. A lot of people on both sides had sent in multiple letters. On the for the budget side, a lot of them were, the multiples were just specific individuals who had sent them from one email address and were trying to get it right. According to Mrs. Corkindale, she didn't like that they had sent them from a specific town email. So they were trying to rectify that situation. But on the opposed side, there were a lot of people who had sent multiple emails to include in that number, but we're still going to include them. So in that 117, that's added. I also would like to point out that on the Board of Education, which I am a member of, it is a majority Republican. And the proposed budget that was cut down was unanimously voted on by both the Republicans and the Democrats. And it still has been cut down. This was not a budget that anybody put together because they thought it was something that we would like to have. It was something that we absolutely need. We are one of the only towns in the entire state of Connecticut that has a growing population. Most people are moving out of Connecticut. Unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to say it in Bethel, people want to live here because it's a great town. Other than that, I just want to say that I personally would never, ever have proposed a specific budget or voted for a budget if it wasn't something that was a true need of the district. This is not there's no fat to trim. This is not something that there is anything to take away from. And I hope that the Board of Finance will support not only the education budget, but the town as well. And I thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next we have, it says Drake.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Hi, yes, I'm Irene Drake. I live at 5 Pleasant Rise, and I'm going to be very brief. Thank you to the Board of Finance for allowing us to have this opportunity. I appreciate the Board of Education for the work they have done, and the Board of Selectmen to craft a fair budget in the times that we are living in. I also do not want to be discounted because I am a Bethel Public School employee. My comments, I'm a taxpayer. My comments come from an employee standpoint, but I'm a parent of a 5th grader going into 5th grade Johnson School. And I can tell you as a teacher, my students who are thriving before distance learning are struggling. And they will continue to struggle next year because we cannot replace the classroom teacher, ever. And we have been above and beyond, we have gone above and beyond to craft a distance learning environment that is phenomenal given the resources and the time that we were given. And I'm telling you, there will be gaps. In my own daughter, I see she is struggling, and the Johnson staff is phenomenal. Her teachers are phenomenal. The videos are phenomenal. It is not the same. So I need the Board of Finance to think long-term and think about the long-term impact, not short-term, long-term. because we are going to have expenses and things that need to be paid for because of the pandemic. So I urge you, my husband and I support this budget, both the town side and the education side. I urge you to do what is right for our town, our children, and everybody. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Donna Jordan. Get your
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Donna Jordan. I live at 13 Benedict Road. I just wanted to say that while I've been online vocal that I think a vote should still be allowed and that I don't think Governor Lamont has the right to override our charter, I do actually think that we need this budget to be passed. I think we were expanding Johnson to not expect we would need more teachers, more staff, more everything as part of that expansion just doesn't make sense to me. Of course, this was going to happen. Of course, we would need more teachers. Johnson School is overloaded. They had no room for even the students that were there when my daughter went there. She's now in middle school. So I just want to say, we can do that. We're expanding Bethel at a huge rate. Those Toll Brother houses, huge amount of them going in. We have to support the schools. We have to support the municipality that pays for it. So while I'm all about economic responsibility and wanting the vote, I think we have to pass the budget. But I also wanted to say that, you know, obviously there's going to be some people who are not able to pay their taxes, who are not going to be able to afford this increase. And the banks are going to give them some breaks, but there's going to be some disappearances. Duracell apparently got a lower tax rate based on their appeal. Certain things are going to get cut from the income side. And we know this. And, you know, I think while I think the budget should pass, I certainly think there's some things we need to keep in mind that we may not be able to do everything we want, and that we need to be aware of what can be cut if needed, maybe not in the budget, but in the real life actuals. And that's really just all I want to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so next we have Nico.
Jordan? Oh. Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Hi. Yes, I can hear you. Nico, will you just tell me your full name?
Oh yeah, Nico Jordan, 22 Wolfpitts Road. I just wanted to agree with a couple of the points that the last speaker made, which were on point about the, just the, inability of a lot of people to pay the taxes right now, and because of the COVID epidemic. And then also the point about the vastly increased amount of housing developments over the last 5-10 years in Bethel, and the increased tax base and tax revenue coming from the increase in the population in Bethel, which we have yet to see, but we're at our 2020 census now, so I think those numbers are going to come out and are probably going to be pretty shocking as far as the growth of the town. And yeah, I just think that the amount for our taxes to continue to go up, existing residents, that somehow it seems like that should be capped or taken into account all the new tax revenue coming in and balanced out somehow. But anyway, thanks. I just wanted to agree with those points.
Okay. All right, and then next we have Penny Kessler. Penny, are you there?
Penny Kessler is the wife of my former dentist.
Penny, we need you to unmute.
No, I unmuted her and she's not there anymore. What? Not for sure what happened.
I see her picture. Well, maybe I can do this.
Yeah, she's muted.
Oh, Okay,
Can you go to the picture, Dion? In fact, on my.
yeah, let me just see if I can find her there because she's not.
Penny, hold
There
on.
we go. Give me just 1 second, Penny. I apologize.
There it is.
Yay! I got it. All right. So for Penny Kessler, 22 Spring Hill Lane. I just want to say thank you to the Board of Finance. I know that this has been an exhausting job, and especially given what's going on with the coronavirus. I think that there are some things that we can agree on. I would prefer to vote. I think we would all prefer to vote. However, that's not a possibility at this time. I also think that we can agree that any compromise budget, which is what this is for the betterment of this town. All of these services that are going to be supported by the budget are going to be supporting every single person within Bethel. It's going to support the first responders. It's going to support the teachers, the doctors, the nurses, the men and women that are out there on the line. And I absolutely and wholeheartedly support the budget as is. We cannot afford to go backwards right now. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. All right, give me just 1 second. Let me get back up to my comments. A couple more, I think. Okay, so we have RMA B2. You there? I'm unmuting you. There we go.
I am now unmuted.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you're unmuted.
Thanks to all. I'm Andy on 72 Codfish Hill Road.
I'm sorry, did you say Andy?
Yep.
What's your last
Road.
name? But what's your
Bjornson.
last? Excuse me?
Bjornson.
Will you spell that?
B as in boy, J as in John, ORNSON.
Thank you so much.
My 4 children went to school at Bethel. They were very, very happy with the 2 that wanted to go to college, and they forgot the 2 that did not want to go. I will say this. What the governor has done to this whole situation is entirely wrong. It's wrong. However, if we can't correct that, could we at least take care of the older people in this town who have supported all of their children forever and give them some kind of tax relief? That is the least this town could do. I have heard nothing but teachers ask for more money. And the older folks have nothing. Nothing. That's all I have to say.
All right. So is there anybody else that wants to speak before we go back up to those that have already had a chance? Okay, let's, John Crouse, I'm going to unmute you. Well, thanks for being patient. There you go. Are you there?
I am.
All right.
I'm gonna need the 1 minute countdown from you because I definitely have. I got 10 minutes worth of material, but I'll try to get it to 5. So please, when I'm 1 minute away, I don't want to miss anything. Thank you.
Okay, I will.
I'm not gonna thank these guys again, but I am gonna send my admiration to Mr. Manfreda, who I personally respect completely. But I do want to I do want to address some of the comments that were made tonight, which I think were ironic at least. Nick Hoffman, thank you for quoting the Founding Fathers. I also believe the Founding Fathers believed in voting rights, and I think you might have missed that one, but that's okay. You know, I like that actually you went there, but you didn't tell the whole story. I do want to say that my father was an assistant principal and a math teacher for 35 years in the high school that I went to. And my mother was also an educator. So this is not born of, you know, ill will towards teachers. In fact, I have a daughter that's at UConn who wants to come back to Bethel and teach in the high school. And I probably have already shaken that from her because of what I've said so far. So, but I fully respect everybody that teaches our children. I can't do it. I wouldn't do it. And I'm glad that you guys are doing it. That said, I would like to follow a teacher working 15 hours a day, Mrs. LaCory, because I work really hard in the private sector. And I would never, ever, ever tell anyone I work 15 hours a day because I don't actually think that's true. So I think we're, you know, sometimes we're passionate about our work, but we're not realistic. I got so many notes. I don't know which one to go to next. Okay. Courtney Martin, you counted wrong. I'm going to let you roll. Yeah, you did. It's not even close to 180 to 117. And if you take out the duplicates on both sides, which I didn't have time to do, I read every single one of them, every single one, for, you know, just because I got nothing to do, I guess, at night. But the copy and paste, people from the town, that was great. They all said the same thing, one line. The heartfelt letters from teachers like Mr. Krupnikoff and some others were appreciated because there was actually some thought put behind that, and he put together a page and a half, and so did some other teachers. And I don't mean to not name them because I just can't remember because I read 325 documents last night. But I think I think your counting of the tally is wrong. And I think actually it's probably closer to 187, 117 the other way. So, but we're not going to be able to dispute that now. And frankly, it doesn't really matter because this whole public comment is required and has no bearing whatsoever on the vote that's going to happen in the next few days. So, but I figured, you know, you give me a time to talk, I'm going to talk.
John, just to let you know, you are at 4 minutes.
No way, already?
Sorry.
Goes by fast when you're having fun.
But you know, I just want to ask if you know, I've never agreed with Billy Michael on anything. So the fact that I'm on his side makes me a little bit scared. But I'm unsure of why the vote can't be moved. I haven't heard a good explanation for that, other than we didn't try. That's not an explanation, but I think that's a fair assessment. You know, I work in the private sector. We're gonna fire a bunch of people just because we can't afford them. And the fact that you're a teacher, again, I'm not anti-teacher. The fact that you're a teacher doesn't, or a town employee, doesn't guarantee you any right to have a job, because the foreclosures and the delinquent tax payments that are going to happen in the next year are uncalculable. But you know what? They're a lot bigger than anybody thinks. And you have to deal with reality. And we're not dealing with reality. I'm done. Go ahead, Bob.
Right. I don't like this job. I don't like keeping with the time.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we have at least one new person, right? I don't think Donna has spoken before.
No, Donna has not.
Check my notes. And yeah.
Hey, Donna, are you there?
I am.
Hi, Donna.
Hi. I wanted to speak to, as I've lived in Bethel for over 25 years. John, I am a teacher. And I can tell you that since we were suddenly shut down in mid-March, we've been working, and I'm talking for the people that I work with, usually from 8 in the morning until between 9 and 10 at night. On Sundays, I usually work about 15 hours straight to get ready for the lessons that are coming because our jobs have completely changed. We're not doing what we had been doing. And going into the next school year, that's going to be the issue that we have, because everything that we've always known about education is going to be different. So I think that that's what Ms. LaCory was alluding to, not that we typically have been putting in 15-hour days for our whole careers, but since the coronavirus has come, it's been that kind of level. The founding fathers were talking more about there's no taxation without representation, and our Board of Finance, we elected them. They're representing us. They're going to do the best that they can given this unprecedented time from within our lifetimes. We have never faced anything like this. Nobody likes it. We would rather vote, but that's probably not a good idea right now without incurring more costs in financial hits with people getting sick and the cost of human life. So that's where we're at. I'm in support of this budget. I worry that it might still have a shortfall for where we're going. I think that people who can need to be able to participate in our community by paying the taxes. The increase that they talked about is very modest, between $7 and $8 a month. And we can then go on to help to speak with our legislatures and see if we can get more state and federal funding to help supplant, not supplant, to help with what we need to do going forward. I just thank you everybody for doing the hard work that you're doing in the midst of this crisis. I hope that the budget can go forward. Thank you for letting me have my time.
All right. Thank you, Donna. All right. We've got Ryan up next. Thanks for being patient, Ryan. Oh, there you go.
Of course. So just a quick question, and I can't help myself by looking through all the line items. I'm curious as, is adding 2 additional teachers enough at Johnson? And the reason I like so focused on schools is just because understanding the importance of it. I mean, I'm a lifelong resident of Danbury, and I chose to move to Bethel with my fiance because to start a family here because of the school systems, knowing the importance and how great the school systems are. So I'm just curious on that, like if adding even an additional teacher would be beneficial, knowing and hearing everyone that is in education tonight that even students that are, have had successes in the classroom are struggling now. If you added 1 or 2 additional school teachers to minimize that class size, would it be beneficial as from a learning standpoint? Obviously, I mean, I know the vote's coming for this year, so it's not in the budget, to add teachers, but I was just curious on if it was actually enough for education purposes.
Do you want me to answer, Mr. Manfreda?
Yes, please.
So thanks for the question, Ryan. The answer is it will certainly help. to reduce the class size. I think that we are estimating if we didn't, and as I explained in my budget presentation, we have these what I refer to as bubble classes that are going through that are larger, and they happen to be both at Johnson and the middle school these coming years. So by keeping the current budget as is, it's our hope, with approval from the Board of Ed, to maintain those teachers so that we can reduce class, because as Ms. LaCory and some other teachers have talked about, class sizes at Johnson will be 27 and 28 students. So that'll at least bring it down to a more manageable level, 24, 25 in a class. And that's our hope with adding those additional teachers. In the budget, we also had, and Mrs. O'Brien, our board chair, also addressed it too, we had also had interventionists because we have other students who have needs that aren't being met. We definitely, in the Board of Ed, definitely was advocating for more, but this leaves us in a position where if we keep the current budget as is, where we can hopefully keep those additional teachers to reduce the class size.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, and then next we have Nick. All right, Nick, are you there?
I'm back and not on my soapbox.
Okay, wait. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll be much more efficient. So I think one thing to consider, because it's been brought up a couple times, that defaulting to last year's budget will trigger the minimum budget requirement that the state mandates for the Board of Education. We have a growing student population. If we don't fund at a certain level, we get penalized in ECF funding. So what you think is a win for this year will penalize us moving into the future and make your mill rate go bananas. So just letting you all know, it's not a good plan.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
All right.
Okay. Are there any other comments? All right.
Okay, no other comments. As you may have heard my phone going off throughout this, I thought there was one very good suggestion, and that was to remind folks regarding the tax deferral that the town of Bethel has put into place. That tax deferral applies to the last quarter's payment and then the first quarter's payment for the fiscal year 21. I believe, Bob Kozlowski, correct me if I'm wrong here, I believe they can reach out to Ann Skako and get the information that is relevant in the form necessary to seek a deferral for, again, the first quarter fiscal 21 year payment.
That's correct.
So again, thank you very much for the person who sent me that text. I want to thank everybody for hanging with us for almost 3 hours. We're at 183. Pretty good staying power for the group that started at 2:38. I want to thank again folks for talking tonight, giving us comments tonight. I want to thank the folks who sent in submissions to the public hearing mailbox. Every one of those submissions were reviewed. I would just ask people to go in there and to look at those submissions as well. We've heard a few folks say, well, it's just a small group saying X, or it's a small group saying Y. It's not a small group. There's 300 plus responses in there. So I would ask people to be respectful of all the opinions that were submitted and to understand the complexity that those submissions present for the Board of Finance. There have been some comments made that, again, I think are slightly unfair. Things about, not caring, listening to one small group instead of the majority. That is not the case here. We are trying to listen to everyone who's submitted a thought, a consideration for this budget. We are representing all of Bethel. And again, this Board of Finance did not ask to be the deciders of the budget. We wanted to be advisors to the budget, but we will step up and we'll do we'll fill our responsibility. We'll do what we've been asked to do. So thank you. The next meeting will be Thursday. It's a special meeting of the Board of Finance, 7 p.m. And I believe, Dion, correct me if I'm wrong, they can use this Zoom contact information for that meeting.
The same Zoom link, yes.
So thank you all again for hanging with us tonight. Thank you
Yes.
for your comments. Stay safe, and we'll hopefully see most of you, or many of you, Thursday night. Be well.
Thank you.